I am just setting up the link for the announcement to go out to the Discord. So if you're watching along on a VOD on YouTube, you're like, why doesn't this guy just fucking start the video? I'm here to hear some hardcore, well, not hardcore, but some sod chat, some hardcore sod chat. Let's get into it. Let's get deep. Let's get dirty. And we will get there in 2 seconds once I let my Discord know that we're doing this. So that link is right about... Sure. There it is. Okay, beautiful. Some sod. Oh, that's some echo. All right, let's go and send that one out to the crew. All right, done. Now I can do that and talk to the guys. All right, so let's welcome our guests. And as always, guys, like if you don't know how I do things, we're pretty open here, guys. This is like talkback radio. Anyone can kind of jump in. So if you're in the Discord and you want your say, have your 2 cents, or if one of the guests says something you'd like to question or, explore further, just jump in the town hall, push the button to put your hand up, and you can talk to us. The only rule is no dickheads. That's it. So let's introduce our guests. Mike, Balls of Steel, what's going on?
Hey Josh, how's it going? I seem to be coming a regular once again on the show.
Mate, it's because you're keen, because you're excited, and
I am.
It's really obvious how excited some of us old heads are. We've been around for years on the classic scene, and now this has really lit the fire underneath us again. And I've certainly seen that in another person who I thought was so cool, calm, and collected, and unflappable under pressure. But he's excited like a teenager again. Clevis, my friend, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good, Josh. How's it going?
I'm doing good. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think that's fair. We didn't really know what to expect going out into BlizzCon this year, and yeah, definitely pleasantly surprised. I think it's kind of lit a fire under a lot of people.
Please tell me there's like one private, like ale-related story that you caught him like clogging up a bathroom or doing something embarrassing that he'll never tell us.
Man, ale-related story. He was there with the wife in tow, so I think he was on his best behavior.
Very good, very good. All right, we've also got someone joining us. Waldo, mate, how are you? You might just want to listen in. I'm not sure. How are you, mate?
I'm doing pretty good. What I'll do is I'll wait for you guys to say something wrong and I'll correct it.
Fair enough, mate. All right, you sit in the corner until then. Look, Mike, I'll start with you, mate. You were very keen to talk about this. The reason we're doing this conversation right now is because we got, I think, what was some pretty cool news, and it's something that we needed to hear. I put out a YouTube video very briefly earlier this morning explaining that a Grend got out there on the front foot and said, hey, guys, all right, enough's enough. We're going to come out and say that Horde's getting cool shit. Look, if it'll shut you all up, you're getting kings at 25. We weren't, but now we are, apparently. They've adjusted on the fly. And I think it was the right move because they probably saw the way in which the wind was blowing and thought, fuck, we're going to have to shut these pricks up. Let's do something now, or else they're not going to have faith that we've got all this cool shit coming for Horde later on. So, Mike, what was your initial reaction to the news?
I was one of those people that was already expecting this kind of thing to happen. So, but still, just to hear it just from a Gren's proverbial mouth and calm everybody down, that it's not going to just be the season of Alliance. I think it's great to hear. I'm very curious how they're going to implement it for shamans. Or however.
Well, they haven't said shaman. It could be any source. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. The shaman's got to at least get like one of the buffs. I'd have to imagine, but yeah, they could give it to other classes. So because paladin got the strength agi buff, so I think maybe shaman gets like maybe shaman could get kings. I think that would
just
make
saying, Shaman is looking pretty solid so far, and the only class at all that's got any sort of downside I'm seeing so far is Hunter, and that's because they're the only one with one role, so maybe give them a bone.
Do you reckon that's a downside? This is a bit tangential, but really quick. Do you reckon it is a downside if they're the only class that's pure DPS?
I think it's a reason why people might think they shouldn't play them, even though it's stupid.
What if they're stupidly powerful DPS?
that's the thing that you don't know until you've played it. And
Hmm.
I mean, it's going to come down to people at the start are going to be rerolling constantly, but if they become powerful at 60, you might find people just, I mean, if it is the season of dads, not season of discovery, then people might not want to reroll by that time.
I fucking love that. Season of Dads. Is that, oh, that's it. Waldo, you've done it. That's the new nickname for SOD, Season of Dads. Fucking book it in. Oh my God, that's the best thing I've ever heard. Hey, Clevis, let me throw this over to you, mate. Because just on something that Mike said, I think that, look, not to go out and suggest that yourself, Mike, and I fucking operate on some kind of higher level here. We're very simple men. We certainly don't. But I think it's fair to say that I'm with Mike. I was expecting this, whether it was said out loud or not. I would venture to say that you were probably expecting this as well, Clevis, whether it was said or not, going, oh, look, we've got faith in these devs just because, you know, there's maybe a little bit of an appearance of a skew towards Alliance at 25. I'm sure it'll come good in the end. But I think a problem became very apparent very quickly for Blizzard, and Gren seems to have acknowledged this, that shit, even though there's players out there that might have faith that balance is coming later, there's probably a boatload more players that only operate on face value and will see what we've announced and think that now they all have to go Alliance. And so the fact that we've sat on some news about what's coming for Horde in the season of Discovery was maybe a bad thing. Shit, let's change our plans and announce something now so we just stop this madness and avoid all Alliance servers. Do you think that it was the right move to make? Because I believe it was.
Yeah, absolutely, it was the right move to make. I think that we are in a time here now, like the, you know, few of us here are a little bit more engaged with some of this stuff than I would say the average player. But the average player is still engaged. Like they're still listening to the streamers and the hype and their Twitter feed and like all these other places. And when the vocal minority makes a point, the average person still hears it in 2023. And so when you have this sort of vocal minority going, hey, the Alliance has Wind Fury, like that's all they hear, right? Because that's the point that gets, you know, clicks on YouTube or clicks on Twitter or whatever else. And to not fix that, like my position, it's easy to make the point after the fact, of course, but my position at the time was, hey, we have Wind Fury, that's great in this demo, but where is Kings, right? Like my point was Kings should have been in the demo right off the bat, right? And I know
did you say anything on the floor?
I did, I did, but you know, and this is the right move that they're making this now. I'm glad that they said it. We went to the, you know, to whatever extent that the devs are actually listening, like in the feedback in the demo after the fact, and had said like, you know, this looks very, very skewed. Like this doesn't look good, and it's not about it being very skewed because I think that the Alliance and the Horde played pretty evenly. I don't think that Wind Fury made that big of a difference. You know, the Paladin thing can be balanced out. Like Rep Paladins were doing great damage, but you know, so were lots of classes. Like we talked about Hunters, and the Horde can just stack Hunters. You know, like it's not, they still have access to that, so it's not like the end of the world to have, you know, Shamans or Paladins doing more or less damage. But but the balance in and of itself can be fine later. Like we didn't necessarily need this, but the perception issue is the biggest issue for me, where it's like if you're going to put Wind Fury out there before, you know, level 32 or level 30 or before Shamans have Wind Totems, you gotta have a bone to throw to the other faction as well. You had to have Kings or Salve or Might or something so that, you know, it looked like there was some parity at that first level band.
Couple of great points there. I'll throw over to Mike for some extrapolation. I think it's really, really good of you, Clevis, to hit on the fact that maybe the net is being spread a bit wider these days. We've joked for years on the podcast about how, you know, we are such a small niche percentage of a gaming community that ventures forth online to devour any and all content to the point that we'll listen to some fucking idiot Australian talk for 6 hours about the game every week. But, you know, there is YouTube, there is Twitch, and as soon as something becomes a common talking point, it will get parroted around and will start to basically push public opinion, even amongst maybe just people that are somewhat casual flying by a stream or checking out the odd YouTube video here or there that aren't necessarily the diehards like us. I think that's a great point. Mike, the reason I'm repeating this is also to sort of hammer home that point of perception that Clevis mentioned. And I think that, and you know, Agren's in chat right now, and thank you, Josh, I appreciate that. He's saying, you know, I appreciate the video and the signal boost, because I think he's really trying to get this message out as wide as possible, going like, you know, we can't emphasize enough how big a mistake you're making if you're thinking to pick a faction based off of what you've seen already. So I haven't asked it yet, but Mike, I'll just say, like, what do you think of those 2 points and the need for Blizzard to spread this message far and wide right now, nip it in the bud?
I think it's just because, you know, there's a lot of people that play WoW, or just a lot of gamers in general, are cynical and doomers, and they are just going to assume the worst unless they are told otherwise. And you know how... and you know how negativity sells. So,
Yep.
especially with content creators. So, you know, Blizzard just has to get out there and be like, guys, please calm down. Otherwise, you know, people trying to signal boost the positivity or the good news are just going to get drowned out by the doomers.
Yeah, it's a problem, Clevis. I think you're going to pipe up there. I want to hear your thoughts on that. I'll just add the following, that it's almost a problematic trifecta with content creators. With you're right, Mike, negativity sells, then also being the voice of like the guide sells, like I'll push you in a direction of success, so listen to me. But then also being, you know, not necessarily negative, but staying controversial, saying things like, has Blizzard, you know, the all the clickbait titles of, has Blizzard ruined faction balance already? Click here to find out more. Like, content creators will lean in heavily on this stuff, regardless of whether or not it fucking ruins servers. It's clicks, and it's talking points for them. It's content. Clevis, what do you think on that?
Well, one of the reasons that I think this is such a smart, savvy move to add this is because I think, like, Kings at level 25 is actually not that impactful.
Yep.
Like that's an important point. Like if you think about if you were leveling on hardcore or just on era, and like imagine you had one paladin in your group and you had the choice between might or kings, because you were, say, a melee class, which would you choose? It would be might every single time at level 25. And like kings is just not that good yet until you have a lot of stats for it to scale with. It's a scalable buff that gets better as you level. And so realistically, kings is very impactful at 60, and, you know, arguably very impactful at 50, you know, less impactful at 40. At 25, it's not that big of a deal,
right?
But it's about the messaging. And as Mike said, like, negativity sells. Like people could have been out there saying, oh my God, this looks amazing. Like I myself, I don't know how many times I've gone back to look through all the news. Like I forgot that respec was reduced. Like there's so much news in that announcement that is so positive, that is so, it's all just good news. And it's like, oh my God, like this just got drowned out, you know, by the sort of like loud minority about, you know, the doomers kind of thing. Like, oh my God, you know, Wind Fury. We want to focus on this one thing, but there's so much good in there that we could have just been focusing on the whole time. And so I think that this move now is really, really good, because it isn't very impactful. So it won't change much from where we were at with the demo to begin with in actual balance terms. It doesn't change anything at the end game, because they were already planning it for later. And it's a huge bone, I think, like to toss a bone to the Horde to say, hey, now we have parity.
Yeah, I agree with you that it is. Look, it's maybe, I wouldn't go as far as saying, I'm sitting here wondering, I wonder if there is some mild form of regret on Blizzard's end now, going, fuck, we should have just put this in the fucking demo to stop all this. But I think that you can still overcome that with the kind of damage control that they're doing now. And I think, you know, getting the message out really early, like you're saying, Clevis, is really good. You know, people like us will latch onto it and be sure to spread the point. But I'm very jealous of you, Clevis, because you raised the point that I was dying to raise as well, which is the Kings at 25 thing. And I've already seen the comments to my content and on other places as well, with people saying, you know, this is dead shit, lazy move. What the fuck does Kings do at 25? Fucking Blizzard. And it's like, mate, you have missed the point so much if that's your take from this. It's about exactly as you say, Clevis, showing now, maybe folding over a card and showing it that you are hoping to hold on to for later, but needing to produce it now to have that good faith build in the community, and every player who's worth their salt knows what this means for later down the track. And if you're short-sighted and looking at what it means for 25, I don't know how to help you. Mike, anything on that?
I'd just say, yeah, they just don't understand how important perception is. Like, perception is for just all so many aspects of life, including stuff like this. It's just perception's everything.
Yeah. And Agren's agreeing with you, Cleaver's going kind of like, yeah, I'd love to meet the paladin that takes kings at 25, Oh dear. But mate, it's one of those things that now expands the conversation a little bit to the realm of speculation where, well, we don't even have to go to speculation yet, Clevis, but we can kind of have that conversation of, do you feel that now with all the information that we've heard given today's updates from Agren, that there is far more parity there and that people will have not, and I don't buy into this bullshit that everyone was going to go Alliance yesterday and now this has changed everything. But do you believe that this has made that choice at character selection screen much more balanced and intriguing?
Yes. Well, yes. I mean, of course, yes. I think that it's a huge, like I say, it's a huge like bone to throw to people. It's a commitment to parity in the future, which I think is an important point. Like it's a promise essentially that Blizzard is willing to essentially follow through on these things that Josh had presented at BlizzCon to say that, we're going to have more of these equivalent buffs, paladin buffs for the Horde and the shaman buffs for the Alliance going forward, right? Like at the end of the day, it's never going to be perfectly balanced. We all know that. That's kind of what makes Classic fun, but a commitment to getting that balance right now, I think goes a long way into the future.
Yeah. Mike, I'll throw it to you and just say one of the more interesting tidbits from this news today for me was that these are changes that weren't necessarily planned. Like this is an on-the-fly move. I think Agren hinted this in his tweet saying, we've already prepped changes since BlizzCon to allow Horde to get kings by level 25. And the subtext to me, and I'm not sure, you by all means tell me if you disagree with my interpretation of this, Mike, the subtext to me is this wasn't going to happen. Kings wasn't going to get handed to the Horde by 25, but they're willing to play jazz and improvise and do what's needed with this game.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think this season is, I think Blizzard is going to be, they're going to have their ear to the community as close as they've ever had, and they are going to be reacting faster than we probably ever realize with any genuine criticism we have of this season, and they're just going to do whatever will make it a better experience.
Do you feel? Sorry, you go, Clevis.
Oh no, I was just gonna say to Mike's point. Now Agran just canceled his vacation after this comes out. So now he's committed to doing all this extra work. But no, I think you're right. It's also, I didn't even think about that. It's a great point, Mike. That it's it's a commitment as well to sort of to balance, basically, right? Like it's a commitment to being agile and being willing to listen to the community and change things on the fly. It's a great point.
It doesn't even have to be about balance. It's just whatever just makes more sense for whatever's happening in the season, or just adding stuff to make it more fun. Like if they notice one class or spec is clearly not playing as fun as it should be compared to all the classes that got to glow up by that bracket, maybe they'll just add something or just be like, here you go.
It kind of feels like a what would you call a pilot project to me. I don't know if you guys agree with that, but this almost feels like Classic plus 1.0 or something along those lines, where where are we going from here kind of a thing. Someone I was reading earlier today was making the points about like PoE and the way that each season they tend to roll a new mechanic, or if there's something that really works in a season, they'll roll it into the base game essentially. And I think that's an interesting iterative model, right? For something like Classic Plus, like we don't really have a sounding ground or like a landing pad for that sort of stuff to go to, because like Classic Era is supposed to be like the untouched like Oasis or whatever, and we don't really have like a Classic Plus for us to go to. So I'm sort of interested to see, I guess, where this goes, and this sort of feels like the first step towards something like that.
I'd say this is Classic Plus. They just put the word season in front of it, so that way if it's not working right, if it's not going great, they can then just end it and say, well, it was a season. And it also means they've got the license to try harder rather than just go soft. By putting season in the front of it, they can do everything that the community has been screaming they should do, with the safety of knowing that if it just doesn't work, they're not basically committing to and promising to a bunch of people that will like it that they have to keep doing it if it's not really working out.
Mike, how did you feel?
There is nothing.
Sorry,
There's nothing stopping them from making this permanent. They just want to put the word season in front of it, so that way they have the option to turn it the same way they did with the other one, which is fine.
Mike, how did you feel about the extra little tidbit that we got regarding threat management on the Horde side, where Agren said, hey, look, we've got some other options for you outside of what is it, Totem of Tranquility, whatever, what the fuck's it called?
Tranquil Air Totem.
Yeah, Tranquil Air Totem. I think it's very, very cool that the Horde is getting their own. Well, it's not that the Horde is getting their own version of Salve. The Horde has always had their own version of Salve, but there is something additional coming to that, coming on top of that, by the words of Agren. What did you think of that?
I think that's amazing. So that means it's basically so you don't have to gimp your raid's damage to reduce threat now. So the shaman could put down, the Grace of Air totem, and you still have the threat reduction buff or whatever, or whatever totem the shaman could put down whatever air totem they want without having to worrying about not having the threat reduction, which is amazing.
Clevis, you're on board?
Yeah, I think so. Salve is always an interesting one because it has absolutely no impact to PvP, right? And so when you have you can look at hardcore era or just era servers now that, I mean, yes, they saw a resurgence in PvP recently, but I think their consistent populations, at least where we have numbers for, tend to be more focused on the PvE side of things. They're more heavily alliance focused, right? Like PV, and again, we can talk about perception versus reality, but alliance in classic tends to be the better, in classic era tends to be the better PvE faction, whereas Horde tends to be the better PvP faction. And so Salve is one of these things, like you can give it to the Horde and it helps quite a bit for their PvE balance, right? And so, and whereas like Wind Fury is something that could help a lot with PvP balance for the Alliance, right? Like you can look at these things back and forth and it doesn't break. Like that's sort of one of the issues with like trying to do parity, because the Alliance buffs don't really mirror perfectly with the Horde buffs, right? Like there's not, Horde kings and Alliance kings and like, oh, just give both to each other. But Salve is one of those things that it doesn't break PvP to give it to the other faction. So it's a good move.
Very good. Mike, have you cast your mind down to anything a little further down the road in regards to either concerns you have or hopes and dreams that you have for faction, things that are good for your faction or maybe detrimental to your faction? I mean, these are very big answers to big questions early on, and I'm so glad that, like I said, I really can't stress how glad I am that they just got rid of this, because it was constantly coming up on the fucking subreddit already about kings, what's happening with kings? Okay, we've put that one to rest. What else is out there that maybe people haven't seen coming, or is that pretty much it?
I feel like that's pretty much it, but I don't know, maybe they could go down, like if they really want to like add a flavor design from vanilla with like new abilities, maybe like they could add certain class and class race combos get certain abilities, like troll shaman now gets like how priests of certain races get certain abilities. Maybe they start doing that with other caster classes get certain abilities if you're playing a certain race.
Right.
And
No, I know what you mean. Yeah, keep going. Sorry.
But yeah, I've just been thinking about what they could add for just classes at like my mind has just been racing of just just trying to just be as much of a just hoping they're just adding amazing things to like every class and spec at like every level band.
And sorry, I should mention, Josiah raises a good point to Waldo's point from a little bit earlier. Yes, in the Wowhead interview, the Blizzard team, the Classic team, has flirted with they've floated out there that a SOD era realm at the end of SOD might be a thing. So that's tie that in with what Waldo was saying as well. That's a good catch. Thank you very much, Josiah. Hey Clevis, let me ask you this: is there a sort of elephant in the room still hanging out there, in your opinion, with druids and what we'll call Wind Fury? We saw the rune that they're getting, and everyone's been talking about it, and that was part of the conversation that formed this. Before it was announced that Horde was getting kings, the conversation basically was, "Oh my god, Night Elf Druids now get Wind Fury. Paladins are so powerful. What the fuck is going on with the Alliance? Blah, blah, blah." We've pulled that back a fair way now with this news about Kings. But that thing with the Alliance Druids is still hanging out there. How do you feel about that point? And do you think it will actually be impactful or not?
Oh, it'll definitely be impactful. I mean,
to faction choice, question. I mean.
Oh, I see. No, I still think it. Well, I think if we're trying to, like, if we've made the point already in this discussion that perception's important, I think that it'll definitely make people roll Alliance. I think it was a fair point somebody made a little earlier, and I think it's a good one. Was that when Classic did launch originally in 2019, PvP servers were actually more popular than PvE servers in terms of early population, and B, the faction balance was actually Horde favorite. And those two things definitely go hand in hand. It'll be interesting, I think, to see what happens with Season of Discovery, because I think there are people who, while there certainly are lots of people who are excited for PvP, I plan to play on a PvP server myself. I think that PvE servers have become more popular over the age. Well, I know over as the arc from TBC to Wrath, they've become more popular generally. And there aren't any PvP servers on Wrath Era, for example, so it's hard to Hardcore Era, excuse me, for example. So the numbers there obviously skew that way, but I think it's gonna be interesting to see how the population follows that, because typically what it is if the PvE servers are more popular, you end up with more Alliance population, right? And so I think that's going to be likely the trend relative to 2019, number one, and I think that the Horde having Wind Fury is also going to help that trend, number two. So my prediction, I guess, is that Alliance will be the favored faction, but happy to be wrong. I'd love to see a 50-50 parity.
Oh, wouldn't we all? Mike, anything on that? Oh, Waldo, sorry, you're going to say something.
Yeah, this is something that I've been thinking as everyone's been talking. Isn't the entire point of a season to try new things and see if they work, and just to go a bit wild? Server balance has been, for the duration of Classic, the number one problem with the game. So now we've got this new utility. We've got what's it called? Runes. Why don't we make it on a per server basis? If a server needs Horde players, why don't we apply a mutation to these runes? So if you are in a server which is down, or sorry, a faction which is down, all of a sudden you get a mutation. So now your PvE ability, which you'd have to make it only PvE, because otherwise PvP wouldn't be fair. But say, for example, you're going into MC, now your Wind Fury gets more AP from the Druid. So it means that if you want to be on the raid which is pumping the most, well, hey, you've got to go migrate with this free migration to the server which needs some Horde players. Or if, say, for example, you wanted to try something lighter first, maybe there's just a buff to XP and gold when there is a faction with less, and promotion on the when you're picking a server, saying this server is looking for more Horde or something like that. Why don't try to use the this whole idea of mutating your abilities and giving you new strong powers, and like try to push people in the direction you want? Because no matter how they balance it, there's always going to be a perception that A is better than B, even if it is like by 0.001% of a fart. They won't care. They'll want to be on whatever the best is. So if there's like some sort of counter argument of, well, if you're not on the best, you get an ability or you get bonuses that are better. So it might make people say, well, I want to be on the lesser because I want to get the bonuses. I mean, there are obviously potentials for downsides, like people flip-flopping all the time, just chasing the best, and that would be horrible for some people, but hopefully that's just the meta people and not everyone.
I hear what you're saying. I want to say that a part of me, even though I'm not very technically proficient, a part of me wants to say that what you're suggesting might not be technically feasible to have like a dynamic thing activated based off of the population of the server. But the spirit of what you're saying, I understand in terms of if we're going nuts, why not go nuts with the greatest issue that has plagued your servers for the last few years? I do absolutely feel that sentiment, and that's definitely, look, I mean, I've been told hopefully I've got an interview coming up in 3 weeks with Blizzard just before launch. I've certainly got questions about this because I am dying to know if anything is up their sleeves that we haven't fucking done before in regards with faction balance. But look, I want to say that if I had someone from the Classic team here right now, I could almost guess their answer and say, look, we know it's an issue. We're going to keep tabs on it. We understand how important this is, particularly given the world PvP events that we're introducing for Season of Discovery. We are, they wouldn't say it in these words, but I'm sure it'll be something to the effect of, we're going to layer the fuck out of these servers, and, layers have their own way of balancing out factions on their own. I don't know. I'm sure that they know of this, but I'm not sure whether anything is being done about it. So that would be a question of mine as a point of concern, obviously, too, because
now's not for the time for that conversation. But I've just realised something you just said. I think very important there. Massive entire what's it called? Not region. Part of map, whatever it's Ashenvale wide PvP event. Is there going to be layers?
Well,
I wonder.
There would have to be. There would have to be. You can't have the whole server in one zone.
But it'd be really bad if people just phased in and out of it. It would just, I don't know. Maybe
you'd still have to. We've seen, unfortunately, that the classic servers do not perform well when mass world PvP is going on, and that's been.
Could you imagine you push it hard?
That's what I'm saying. Like, you
just
can't
have to kill him, and then you get bloody pushed off the layer. You'd be so sad.
Yeah. So I mean, but this is the thing, mate. You've also got to think, like, practically speaking. Let's say you got 10,000 people on your server, and that's maybe underestimating some of these servers. Let's say you got 10,000 people on the server, and then within fucking 7 days, 80% of that server is level 25 or something, and they all filter to Ashenvale for those PvP rewards. Like, you just can't do it. It'll be
the gates opening event all over again, which, to be fair, that was amazing fun.
Oh, no, but I'm saying the game would be unplayable. So, like, of course, I think they'll have lots of technical, levers to pull and all of that stuff. Sorry, Clevis, Mike, we've been going on for a little bit there. Anything from you guys on that? Sorry, go. We'll finish it.
My main point there is that it would be great if, I don't care how they do it, they try to form a more stick approach to trying to get people not a stick.
Sorry, what would you say? A more what approach? Waldo, listen, what'd you say? A more what approach?
Just try something this time around for server balance, because we are 1000%. The second the server names are announced, there's going to be the Horde server and there's going to be the Alliance server. 1000% that's going to happen.
But I think what we're saying now is, don't be so hasty on the dooming on that one, because if they're getting out this news now and saying, hey, Horde's really good, Alliance is really good, I don't think you're going to see a 100-0 server like in this first phase or anything. I mean, I'm not going to be the person that's going to say it's not coming. Fuck, you never know, and Stranger Things have happened, and it's definitely happened through the life cycle of Classic, but I don't think we'd be seeing it anytime soon.
It's just that the hardcore server example is more to me, where as soon as the servers were announced, all the Alliance servers said, yeah, we're going on Defiance Villages, and all the Horde said, we're going on Skull Rock. So
you'd want to avoid that, but I think that was probably overstated the effect. Like, that wasn't... There were Horde on Defiance and there were Alliance on Skull Rock, but I know what you mean. It was very skewed. I do appreciate that. Sorry, Clevis, Mike, anything from what you've heard just there over the last 5 minutes?
Well, the Ashenvale question is an interesting one too, because like this is the same problem that we had with Wintergrasp and Wrath, right? Where if you do have a server that's 80% one faction or the other, and they want to go into Wintergrasp. Like, there was kind of a fix for it, but it still creates a unique challenge, right? Especially when they were trying to figure out how to give the buff to your server, and the sharding and the instancing, and like the different ways that they had tried to fix that problem. So I think that, I guess my view on the Wintergrasp thing is that was a workable solution. It was definitely different from the way that it worked back in the day. And people had sort of mixed reviews about that. I'm going to be interested to see definitely what they do with Ashenvale. I don't know what they're going to do with Ashenvale, so I am like really, really interested to see it. We get to see it here pretty soon. It's coming out pretty quick, but yeah, I genuinely don't know. I'm actually kind of perplexed with what they're going to do.
Mike, anything on that?
It's probably the thing I'm least interested in with Season of Discovery, because I've come to grips with myself as I've played Classic over the years at this point. I am pretty done with dealing with dickheads out in the world of PvP, so I am heavily leaning towards just playing on a PvE server. So if I want a PvP out in the world, I'm gonna opt into it.
Can I give you another prediction? I know that I love the moniker Season of Dads. So we've got Season of Discovery, aka Season of Dads. I'm going to give you another aka. I really think this is going to be Season of Dickheads as well. The world PvP events that they've got planned, like obviously just this Ashenvale one is just one of a few that they've said it's going to be more. They want to do more in the higher levels. I think world PvP is going to be so incentivized, which I think is a good thing. I'm not saying this is bad. I love PvP. I love world PvP. I will be absolutely getting amongst it and loving this stuff. But I truly think it will bring out the dickheads, and like they will want to cause mayhem in world PvP for their rewards. What do you think, Cleavers?
I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited for the PvP, the world PvP, and the events and the rewards. I think that new systems are always fun to play with. Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to see what they do. I don't really want to make any predictions about it because I think it could go a lot of different ways. I think we saw, kind of like the quote unquote world PvP that we had in original Classic. Sort of mixed reviews. I didn't ever really engage that much with like Eastern Plaguelands. We only really engaged with Silithus to get the buff from doing Silithus. We didn't do those ones too much, but on the flip side of things, like in Wrath with Wintergrasp, like we engaged with that quite a lot because the rewards were, almost mandatory, right? Like the rewards were so good. So I'm excited to do it. I think this time around, I'll likely do it, even if the rewards aren't that great, just to do it for fun. Like it is sort of, Season of Discovery. It's, sort of crazy stuff. So I think the PvP will be, I expect it will be like sort of equally crazy. So you got to, try it once kind of thing. So kind of excited to see what they do with it. Gonna have fun with it.
Too easy. All right, we'll bring in a list of question from the crowd. Reformed, you ready to go? I'll click you in, mate. You just got to click one more button and then you can speak to us. Hey, Reformed, thanks for joining us. How are you, brother?
Hey, I'm doing all right. Thanks.
No. Thanks for putting your hand up. What did you want to add to the conversation?
Yeah, I wanted to add in regards to the PvP, right? With the cap being 25 and the honor system being in at release, I believe they said only Warsong would be in. So with the honor system, and if they do the new, era system with the node decay, you're certainly going to be seeing a lot of people out in the world, both in the Ashenvale event and in general, because they're going to be wanting to rank up to what I believe will be the cap will be rank 3. Because I believe they also mentioned there would be new items from like the PvP vendor. So I certainly see PvP being a very big thing. And I hope there's, something that can be done regarding the balance.
Well, and it's a good point too with how the new era ranking system has no decay, or at least you can't drop down a rank from decay. And so if the bands, like if you're going to level up over the course of 9 months or whatever it's going to be, like the fact that it doesn't decay, I think even incentivize people to PvP early, or like earlier than level 60 as well. I think those two really played well together. It's
so brilliant because having that new system in without decay means exactly what you're saying, Clevis. People, I think people will rush. They'll get to 25 as soon as possible, and then probably get to whatever the capped rank is as soon as possible. And like you're saying, Reformed, we can all guess it's probably going to be like rank 3 or rank 4 or whatever. It's going to be something low. You can kind of get in and get out in a relatively short time frame on that first character, and then you're almost like invited to start up an alt, do it all again, because it's not going to take that much time to get to 25, do a couple of runs of Black Fathom Deeps, and get to rank 3 or 4 on with the PvP. I think it really, at least this first phase, will really, really encourage people to go out and try all these brand new bells and whistles on all the classes they want to see. Mike, does that entice you at all? Do you think that'll be the super alt friendly kind of environment you'll want to check out?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the level cap being 25, it's gonna be super all friendly. Like I've pretty locked in with like what new thing I want to focus on being rogue tank. But I think I'm definitely gonna have at least 1 or 2 alts. And muck around with them and see how much fun I have with them. This phase is gonna be the phase where if you want to have multiple characters and really see what everyone else is going on with all the new tools we're getting, now this will be the time. This will be your moment. Because as those level bands keep going up and up, it's gonna it's gonna be more of an investment to get those characters to cap, and with it being saying the season of dads, I think by the level 50 cap, people are really just gonna start to focus in on like 1 or 2 tunes.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, but they do have the leveling bonus too, right? We're kind of expecting Joyous Journeys essentially for the lower bands. So once we hit level 40, there should be Joyous Journeys to 25 kind of thing. So I mean, at least relative to like era or hardcore, like I expect that people will have a lot more alts. I think that's going to be true throughout. Definitely still gets harder as we get to higher levels, but I'm kind of looking forward to all the alts. I agree.
Hey, I'll ask one last question. Then I've got to pull us back on track to the faction balance thing as my dogs go nuts. Sorry about that. Reformed, is there anything else you wanted to add in regards to the world PvP? Like, I'm really excited by it. I think it's a really fun thing that they've suggested. I think PvE servers are going to be popular again after people went through PvP servers with Classic that maybe they weren't as big of a PvP fan as they might have thought they would be. So I'm sure that people will say, fuck these Classic players, they're all dickheads. I'm not doing the fucking PvP thing where I get camped again in the world. That's not me. I love world PvP. But is there anything else on that point that you wanted to mention?
I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully we can get some really interesting things with potentially new gear from the PvP vendors. And if there was going to be any sort of technical implementation for faction balance, the best option would be something that can motivate the underrepresented faction to get out into the world and get engaged in that PvP, like other games have done, gathering bonuses.
No, look, if it starts to head that way, I would love to see it as well.
Can you imagine how amazing the level 25 world PvP events are going to be? There's going to be just like Westfall being bloody stormed by the Horde. It's going to be awesome.
It'll be great.
I mean, it's going to be awesome for a second while people level, but it's going to be amazing.
It'll be great. Low level PvP is a lot of fun. So, and like people have already said, it's kind of going to be like everyone's a twink.
It's almost like they stopped at that level to get you into Terran Mill and South Shore.
Hey, I'm going to be a bit cruel. We'll bring up the final point. I don't want to go too long, guys. I promised Clevis I wouldn't turn this into a farcical 3-hour podcast. So we've been going for 45 minutes and I will start to wrap it up. There's one point I really need to bring up, given the theme of this particular conversation being faction balance and things being addressed. Reformed, mate, you're a first-time caller, so I'm going to throw you in the deep end if that's okay. So strap in and listen to this question. By all means, if you don't want to take the question, you can just pass, mate. It's all good. But I want to ask you this. The real elephant in the room left, in my opinion, from what I'm seeing around the discussion on the forums and the subreddit, now is the potential for Bloodlust. Now, a lot of people might have vomited in their mouths when they heard that in regards to a vanilla world. A lot of other people would have become very, very titillated by the concept of Bloodlust in Season of Discovery. I want to know from you guys how you feel on whether or not Bloodlust to, for the Horde or for both, I don't know, however you might do it, whether Bloodlust is something that you feel should be introduced as a really nice cherry on top for one faction maybe, or just a really nice mechanic that should be introduced for both factions to spice up late dungeon and raid play. What do you think, Reformed?
Yeah, that's a great question. When we talk about classic, right? When we talk about vanilla, class identity and faction identity is a very important part of it. So while some of the balancing things of giving like Wind Fury to druids and blessings to shamans or horde, those aspects are certainly great, but having that identity is very important to me. And in my perspective, Horde has always been the high risk, high reward faction. You've got, Wind Fury totems. You've got this, you don't have the safety net of kings. You don't have the safety net of blessing protection on alliance. It is the, winner wins more type of perspective. So for me, seeing Bloodlust would only amplify that, and I think would really solidify Horde as if you really want to go, Horde is the faction to be. It fits.
Well, in my opinion, I can't decide whether or not I'm for or against Bloodlust in Season of Discovery. But in my opinion, if you gave it to one faction and not another, you'd almost have to do it at the level 60 bracket so people don't re-roll, even though they probably still would. But I just feel like it would break things that people would be like, oh, I can't believe they got Bloodlust and we didn't. And I just wonder if it's a can of worms that's best left untouched. But I'm not convinced. So I'll throw this open to the floor. Who has strong feelings on this one?
I'd be all for Bloodlust, and yeah, like Reform said, how with the Horde is like high risk, high reward. I think maybe if shamans get Bloodlust, you give paladins like some big raid wide defensive cooldown. So like a lot, I don't know.
Go hard, more damage.
I was just trying to keep with the theme of Reform's point.
Maybe
being
maybe could be doing an alliance exclusive. Maybe an alliance exclusive hunter debuff where they mark a what's it called, a raid boss for death. So you don't get a bonus to all your damage on every target, but you get a slightly better damage bonus on a single target. So that could be the difference, is that when you're playing alliance, the hunters of the alliance have the ability to mark one certain character, one certain non-PvP target as for death.
All right. Settle down, Waldo. Settle down. I know what you mean, but just what do you think about Bloodlust in and of itself, Waldo? How do you feel? How does your gut feel when I say that in a Season of Discovery?
I want there to be a difference between factions. I just don't know if that's what the point of SOD is, and I'm happy for it to be season of both factions can do the same things. I really don't mind if it is, but I still think the game's better when they're different.
Fair enough. Clevis, let me get you to bring us home on this one, and I'll just add in this sort of spiel when I say I'm genuinely intrigued by the conversation surrounding Bloodlust, and I'm not really sort of well versed enough to understand why some people might be so vehemently against it. I'm guessing that much of the objection might come from, oh, well, I don't want to live in a world where one faction has it and the other does not. Maybe those objections go away if you floated it out there as Horde and Alliance get Bloodlust, and maybe then everybody's happy. But I feel like there are some people that think that Bloodlust kind of breaks raids in a little bit of a small fashion. Do you share any concerns about it, or you think it's a fun mechanic, it should absolutely be included? Where do you sit on it?
Well, for starters, it absolutely is a fun mechanic. It's always fun to do more damage, like the big buttons. This is why people love world buffs. This is why people like breaking the game, right? Like we've seen even just in various versions of the game, you can use more damage to skip mechanics to make things easier. And so it's definitely a fun ability. The challenge, I think, with Bloodlust is that it sort of paints the designers into a corner where, okay, well now we need to design encounters that have like a burn phase into like every raid. And then if you do that, then you have to have some sort of parity between the factions. So if you do want to then maintain, differences between the factions, then okay, well, does Horde get haste and the Alliance gets crit, or like it has to be some sort of like seemingly equal parity, so that the design, like I don't think you couldn't just give the Alliance a defensive cooldown, because then there's going to be encounters that are like trivial for the Alliance and hard for the Horde, and there's going to be encounters that are trivial for the Horde and hard for the Alliance, which is fine when that encounter is like maybe like Viscidus or something. It's an optional boss and it doesn't in theory drop any important loot or something like that, but it's not good when it's like Cthulhu or like Ragnaros or like somebody that like is important for raid teams to be able to take down. So I don't like it from a design perspective, because I think it makes it too difficult to design the encounters, and that's bad. As much as you want to maintain faction identity and class identity, you absolutely do. That's like a super balanced game is kind of boring, and you always want to do the thing that's most fun. It just paints the larger game, I think, into a difficult place.
All right. Let me throw out this last question for all of you. Reformed, I'll start with you. At this stage, knowing everything that we know, do you think enough has been done to say that whether you pick Horde or Alliance on day one, you've picked the correct faction, the quote-unquote correct faction in the eyes of the sweaters?
I definitely don't think so. Given primarily due to like comments from Agran, like saying like, hey, we're gonna, give you this, nugget of information, right? We're gonna say that we have things planned, don't worry about these potential imbalances that people are seeing currently. And with that future, if there's going to be 20 runes per class and we've only seen 12 of them, those 8 runes, there's just no way to know.
All right. How about you other guys? Same question. Mike, I'll throw it to you. Has enough been done to make either faction the correct choice on day one?
I think so. I think it's just, this should just be just play what you think is cool. Blizzard is doing their best to try to make sure there is not one faction isn't clearly skewed either way. Just play what you think is cool, people.
I agree.
Don't min-max everything at the end of the day. And even then, even if one faction is slightly better, it's probably like 1%. That literally doesn't fucking matter. Yeah. Play what you think is cool.
I agree, and people like you and I can say that till we're blue in the face, Mike. Unfortunately, we're also realists. We know that, we can tell the min-maxers to knock it off as much as we want. They're not going to. I think that the only way to do that is to put them in such a, such uncharted waters that they actually can't min-max yet because they don't have enough information. I think we are there. Clevis, I'll get you to... actually, wait, Waldo, I'll throw to you first and we'll finish up with Clevis. Waldo, I think we're there. Do you think that what Mike has said will be the case? People can just, confidently pick what they think is fun, and we are now in territory where both fucking factions are fantastic.
I think before any of their additional announcements were made, it was fine to play both, and all that's happening right now is just trying to convince everyone else.
All right. Fair enough. Clevis, you bring us on home, mate. This will round out the podcast. The word of Clevis, main tank of Onslaught. Has Blizzard settled the argument? Horde, Alliance, day one. You'll fucking have a great time either way.
Yes, so I think that adding Kings to the game was the absolute right play here. I think that it really evens the playing field in terms of perception. I think that the challenge and results, or excuse me, Reform sort of hinted at this. I think that what Blizzard was doing, rather unfortunately, I think around the demo time, was that they were saying, look, we're going to have this parity between the factions, but at the same time, it's just a promise. Ignore your eyes and your ears, what you're seeing in the demo right now, because that demo was, to be frank, granted just PvE, but to be frank, it was very Alliance favored. We had Wind Fury on the Alliance, we had nothing on the Horde. Paladins were great. Shamans were also good, but Paladins were great. And they were just saying, here's a promise, nothing to cash in on, just ignore your eyes and your ears. I think that this sort of bone with kings towards the Horde, like I said before, even though it's really not that big of a deal at level 25, is a huge promise or a huge commitment to being balanced in the future, and yeah, play whatever you want.
Very good. Well said. All right, guys, we'll wind it up there. Thank you so much for taking part in that, everyone. Look, guys, if you enjoyed this, there's going to be plenty more of these kinds of conversations all the way leading up to launch. You've seen the guys, amazing people like Reformed just jump in, put their hand up, and I'm so happy to have people like Reformed join. It's just seamlessly fitting in with us, just mature conversation about the game, having fun and speculating about what's to come. So we'll say our goodbyes. I'll start with Waldo. Waldo, mate, thank you so much for being here.
Yep, good to see you.
Good to see you, mate. Mike, it's been a pleasure.
Gosh, absolutely happy to be here.
Always. Clevis, my friend, thank you so much.
Yep, it's always a pleasure, Josh. Thank you.
Won't be the last time we hear from you, Sunshine, I'm sure, over the next couple of weeks. And I'll round out with Reformed. I really do mean that, Reformed. I'm not just saying it just to kiss your butt. Thank you so much for having the courage to join the crew for the first time. It was great having you. You still with us, Reformed?
I appreciate the opportunity.
All good, man. All good. All right. Well, look, we'll see you later, guys, and I'll end the stream there. Look out for more SoDcasts very soon. Catch you guys.